Good morning. How's everybody doing out there? Oh, you can do better than that. How's everybody doing out there? I am very excited to be up in front. My name is Daryl Willey. I'm the Executive Director for Teach for America in Jacksonville, Florida. Any Florida folks out there? Woo! One. Small but mighty. I have the opportunity of introducing one of our folks, and she's gonna introduce the rest of them. But this is an exciting opportunity because this is what it's all about. I look across this table right here, and the amount of hours and volunteerism that's just in this group is just immense. And that's what we need in this city. That's what we need across this country, and that's why I'm excited. I think about this next person I'm getting ready to introduce. She's a rock star when it comes to Florida. Wendy Spencer has been someone who has shown up and owned up, as I say, in my region. She's been there for all of us, and in fact, when she comes in, she has that ability to be able to talk to a full crowd, fire them up, get them ready to go, but also when she comes off the stage, be able to talk to you and you feel like you're the only person in the room. So in April of 2012, the U.S. Senate unanimously confirmed Wendy Spencer's nomination to serve as the CEO of the Corporation for National and Community Service, CNCS. CNCS is a federal agency that engages millions of Americans in service through AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, and the Social Innovation Fund. The agency also leads the President's National Call to Service initiative, United We Serve. Under her leadership, CNCS has launched new partnerships that have created more opportunities for Americans to serve in AmeriCorps, expanded services for veterans and military families, helped communities recover from severe disasters, and built a national network of nearly 3,000 mayors and county leaders that support national service. She joined CNCS following her service as the CEO of the Florida's Governor Commission on Volunteerism, where she coordinated volunteer efforts during responses to disasters, including 8 record-breaking storms from 2004 to 2005. She has a distinguished career that includes leadership roles in government, nonprofits, and the private sector. Y'all are about to have a good time with this panel and this panelist, and we're going to give it up for her. So let's give it up for Miss Wendy Spencer, everybody.
Keep the music up. That was one of my favorite songs, right? Thank you, Daryl. I appreciate that. All right, well, he left off something I'm real proud of, ladies. I'm the first woman CEO of this federal agency. And I always like to thank the men who are clapping, and I see a couple of you didn't, so you and I are gonna chat afterwards. But this is great. It's so great to be here, and I mean, we have got one dynamic panelist group to talk with today, so it's going to be fantastic, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. So this is a special year for Teach for America, celebrating the 25th anniversary and 50,000 educators. That's unbelievable. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's really incredible, really amazing. And so let me do the little connection between our agency and TFA. So right now, just to get you up to speed on where we are right now, we are very proud that we have 75,000 AmeriCorps, AmeriCorps Vista, and AmeriCorps NCCC members serving today all across America, and 270,000 seniors serving all over America as well. And we proudly administer the Social Innovation Fund, created under President Obama's vision here with working very closely with the White House. We were proud of that. We work with 53 governor's commissions on volunteerism as well. So we're very closely connected to states through governors, as well as our grants and partnerships too. We have about 4 million volunteers who serve alongside our formally enrolled national service participants, which is outstanding. And we actually have a service member, a national service participant, in 60,000 locations, which is pretty amazing. So it's really great. So I want to get a little temperature here. How many current TFA teachers do we have in the room today? Corps members. Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. And how about Teach for America, AmeriCorps alums? Teach for America. Awesome. And then what about just AmeriCorps alums not affiliated with TFA? Maybe. Good, excellent, awesome. Vista members, AmeriCorps, which is great. So I feel like we certainly have the choir here today as well. So I'm going to tell you something that's going to happen this year. Those of you who are either current Corps members or AmeriCorps alums or Vista alums, this year we will induct the 1 millionth AmeriCorps member. Is that fantastic? It's really great. So I promised President Obama we would do it before he left. We have to make that promise. That would be pretty embarrassing if we didn't make that, but we are going to make it, and it's going to be pretty cool when we announce that. I don't know when that's going to drop, maybe late spring or early summer, my statisticians tell me. But it'll be a pretty cool moment, and watch for that news. Follow me on Twitter, if you will, and you'll be able to stay close to that news and all of our news. So a quick budget recap. We have a lot to celebrate. This past year, we were faced with a pretty scary budget scenario going into the final vote. And the numbers that were put up by the House and Senate were really tragic. One was a 35% cut and one was a 20% cut. And literally days and a few weeks going into it, we thought we were going to see realistically a 20% cut in our agency's funding, which is going to be devastating because of all the great service that is going on. But fortunately, because of a lot of great work from Voices for National Service, from you, the field, from the work we had been doing over the years, cultivating relationships, educating members of Congress, and really starting with mayors and local officials all the way through local, state, governors, and of course, members of Congress, we ended up with a $40 million increase in the second highest appropriation in our agency's history. So it was really fantastic. It was great. $50 million increase for AmeriCorps and another $14 million increase in our Siegel Education AmeriCorps Awards. It's really great. So one thing about our agency, we have 6 priority areas. So education, environmental stewardship, economic opportunity, disaster services, and healthy futures. We literally could take our $1.1 billion federal appropriation and we could divide it 6 ways, and that would be a legitimate division, and there's needs in all 6 of those areas that are critical across the country. But we don't. We made the decision years ago, and it continues today, half of our budget is invested in educational opportunities for Americans. Not 1/6, not a quarter, half. And we feel like that's the right mix because it is so important to invest in education. Service is such a great fit. It makes a difference. It makes an impact. And we know that it's working. And it also helps just, the other areas of need when you have a well-educated America. So that reduces the need in the other areas like economic opportunity, healthy futures, and other things. But just to tell you our footprint in America as far as schools, we love to count in the federal government. We counted, and we have a presence of at least one national service participant. And many times it's 5, 15, 20 in a school. But in public schools, we're in 11,716 public schools. That's one out of every 10 schools in America. And we looked at what type of schools, and 1 in 4 of those are persistently low achieving schools. So we're in public schools, we're in the right places, we have a high presence, it's making a difference. And everywhere I go, I talk to teachers and I ask them, are you aware of AmeriCorps? Is it making a difference? And they are telling us yes. We have a great partnership that we did. We're getting real creative with the Department of Education called School Turnaround AmeriCorps. And that's a partnership we did with Teach for America, too. In fact, we worked with education. We said, let's invest national service in some of the highest need schools in America. And let's do it by pooling our federal resources together and also recruiting match at the local level. In fact, Teach for America, we have 86 Corps members in 4 states as a result of this particular grant. So I'm really pleased with that. So that's that's how we're thinking. We're thinking a little differently. It's amazing, 2 federal agencies coming together. The power of 2 federal agencies focused on education, I think, is really, really important. Another thing we partner with Teach for America is computer science teacher Teachers AmeriCorps, which is a brand new partnership that we're doing. The president announced it as a weekly address. First time he's named our agency in the weekly address. I was pretty proud last Saturday. And it's called Computer Science for All. And the goal is to enroll 10,000 teachers across America in computer science courses so they can teach it in their own classrooms and maybe even convert to computer science teachers if they want to. And they're going to do services as a result and receive some Siegel AmeriCorps Education Awards as well. So, and you all are partnered with us with your CS at TFA, a cool name, in your computer science goals as well. So it's really exciting what's happening with our partnerships. And just to close on one personal note, where you are is pretty amazing. I found myself in the deep in New Mexico, summer before last, stayed on the reservation of Zuni Nation. Now, this is a real impoverished community. It's really amazing. There's a real desire to want to lift up their youth, but they do struggle with resources. And as I toured the Zuni Nation, I went into a school and was greeted by TFA Corps members. And one particular one that stood out was this fabulous African-American Corps member from New York City. And I said, what are you doing, city girl from New York, in the middle of Zuni Nation? Why are you here? And she said, I wanted to take my education and my background and my gifts, any that I have, and bring them to some of the toughest parts of the country. And I wanted to make a difference. And that landed me here in the middle of Zuni Nation. Totally different from anything she'd ever been brought up to do. Never thought she'd end up there. And she was making the most amazing difference. And you know how I know that? I met with a group of teachers of her students. Not teachers, a group of parents of her students. I also met with a group of teachers as well. But the parents told me the difference that she was making in Zuni Nation and how proud they were to have a Teach for America Corps member from New York City. So you never know where TFA is going to land, but I just think that was one of the most inspirational moments for me to see how service could see itself in something very different from what the upbringing they had had. So congratulations, TFA, on an amazing, amazing 25 years. Congratulations to all of you. Now, I've got a group of very underachievers up here. So I'm going to try to lift them up. And I looked really hard to find, something in their background that would allow me to tell you how they stand out, And it actually wasn't very hard. These are some of the most overachievers I've ever been with. So they're amazing. So I'm going to start with Shirley Sagawal. Shirley's president and CEO of the Service Alliance. She's an amazing consultant, one of the leading experts on national service in the country, I'll say in the world, and I'm not exaggerating. She's been a presidential appointee for both President Clinton and President George H.W. Bush. She's got some titles like former deputy chief of staff to somebody named the First Lady Hillary Clinton at one time. She wrote the legislation that created our agency and AmeriCorps. I mean, this lady is a change agent. She co-authored with her buddy and our dear friend, Deb Jossman, the book Charismatic Organization. And she has won many, many awards, but one I pulled out for today, Voices for National Service, the Citizen Award. Shirley, welcome to our panel. Congratulations. Alan Casey on my far left, co-founder and founder of CEO of Be the Change currently, co-founder and former CEO of City Year, who you're going to hear about, named CNN Money Fortune's World's Greatest Leaders of Dynamic Duos, which is fantastic. His dynamic duos also up here. Author of Big Citizenship, married to an amazing leader herself. Unbelievable change agent, and I love the organization Be the Change that he created. Welcome, Alan. the two dynamic Michaels, and the one closest to me, Michael Brown, CEO and co-founder of City Year, where they are now in 27 U.S. cities, UK, and South Africa. I know there's 3,000 just in America. He'll tell us more about his other countries. It's really amazing the lives that he has been able to touch, both with the vision that he and Alan had together. He was listed, and Alan were both listed as America's top leaders in U.S. News and World Report, which is pretty amazing. I happen to be, this is how creative he is, I happened to be visiting and researching City Year when I was serving in Florida as the head of the Governor's Commission on Volunteerism, and I traveled to Boston to learn about this thing called City Year that was having such amazing success. On that day, there was a magazine, the U.S. News and World Report magazine, with his photograph in it, he and Alan as the world's best leaders, or the nation's best leaders, and I said, and it just came out that morning. I said, how did you orchestrate that on the morning that I traveled to Boston? I don't know how he pulled that off, but I totally give him credit for that. He's been so many things, legislative assistant to then Congressman Leon Panetta, and so many other great consultants for others. And just last year was named the 2015 Independent Sector John Gardner Leadership Award, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. Congratulations. Now, Michael Smith, my other brother in service up here, currently has one of the coolest titles in America, Special Assistant to the President, and I mean President Obama, and also Senior Director of Cabinet Affairs, another special title, to my brother's keeper. Which is fairly pretty cool that that's what he is, but his favorite title was when he worked for me as director of the Social Innovation Fund. See, yeah, I know. I mean, that'll never show up probably on the resume as high as this does. But before that, before I stole him from Gene Case at the Case Foundation, where he was also senior vice president, and Gene is still not forgiving me for that, but he has done amazing work in the social innovation world. And the fact that he's really working very closely with Broderick on the cabinet secretary on My Brother's Keeper is a real testament to the faith that our president has in him to lead what will be one of his many great legacies. But this is an award that I'm really proud of for Michael that he got. I'm sure it was because he was serving me at the time, but I don't think it has anything to do with it. He is now in the Hall of Fame for the Boys and Girls Club of America for his work with that. So I told you I had a group of underachievers up here, right? Oh my goodness. So I'm going to start out, and I'm going to ask a question of each of you, and then I'm going to start with one person, and then if others of you have something to add that you think will contribute and support or counter, if you want, any of the original person I asked the question of, feel free to chime in. And the first one is for Michael Brown. I'm sorry. Yes, I would do that. I'm so sorry. I went right into not giving them the opportunity to tell them about their organization first, which I think, thank you, Michael, for telling me that. So Shirley, get started and tell us you've got some cool stuff started, so let's start with that first.
Thank you, Wendy, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Teach for America is just one of my favorite programs, and it's amazing that I feel like it happened so quickly. It was like just yesterday. I was sitting at the Corporation for National Service. It had just started, and we were implementing legislation in which Teach for America, Wendy Kopp specifically, had a very big role in shaping. And there was special provision for professional corps to fit in this, fairly complicated legislative structure. And there was a little controversy. If you've read Wendy's book, there was a little controversy about whether Teach for America should be funded, and I got to be in the room advocating for the decision that we actually give Teach for America its first federal funding, and I'm so glad that we did, because look what's happening. And in the last, 25 years, there's just been millions of people who have had experiences that are essentially similar in important ways to what those of you who have served in Teach for America have done. There are people who make a time-limited but full-time commitment to do something hard to help others. And they expect the experience to advance their own personal goals, which is great, and maybe change the trajectory of their career. And so some of these young people are in programs like City Year, funded by AmeriCorps, as well as things like Citizen Schools or Playworks. So, those are programs you may have heard of. Some of them are serving in Mali or Morocco or Myanmar in the Peace Corps. And some of them are just, rehabbing homes in their own low-income neighborhoods through programs like Youth Build or Youth Corps. And you're connected to all of these people. Some of them don't have high school diplomas. Some of them are serving far away. They're doing things other than education, but you're all one movement. And so what we're trying to do is knit this movement together, because we can be so much more powerful. I see the power that comes out of the over 40,000 alums of Teach for America and the influence you are having in education reform. And I want to see that influence multiplied many folds in education, but also outside of education, because if you're in the classroom, you know that you can't solve all the problems. You know that the poverty, that the health issues, that the lead in Flint, like there is just, there are tragedies going on all over America today that don't get in the news, and that we need the same level of investment of human capital and education and diverse, hands working on them that we have here. So that's what we're trying to do. The Service Year Alliance was formed just last month to build that movement. And we're actually a merger of 3 organizations that had the same goal, which is to make a year of service a common expectation and opportunity in America. So we're a merger of Service Nation, which was founded by Alan, which brings a grassroots and marketing capabilities to the movement. The Franklin Project is another of our predecessor organizations, which was part of the Aspen Institute, and it was founded by General Stan McChrystal, which is wonderful to have the military support for civilian service. And the Service Year Exchange, which I founded, is the third, which is designed to bring technology, state-of-the-art technology, to the service movement. We wanted to create an on-ramp for organizations to create service programs. And if you think way back to before I got to help decide to give Teach for America a grant, Teach for America wasn't an AmeriCorps program. City Year wasn't an AmeriCorps program. They got started because of their amazing, social entrepreneur leaders who kind of had an idea and thought, this is the kind of human capital we want to bring to a strategy. And there, in the early days of AmeriCorps, there was that kind of energy. Predating the legislation, there were, hundreds of people all around the country who had this idea. And they thought, well, this would be great. We'll get some funding, and so they did help push for federal legislation. But nothing springs forth as a fully formed AmeriCorps program. It takes a few years to figure out, how do we do this right? How do we engage young people in a way that's powerful? And so we created an on-ramp where you can be certified and you can go on to, we're trying to make it easy to apply for AmeriCorps, and I'm counting on Wendy to make it easy on her end as well.
Working on it.
It's going to be someday. So just a few things I wanted to challenge everybody here who's part of the world of education to do. One is, can you create opportunities for young people in your own schools and in organizations in your community? Try it out. Raise a little money. Fund 3 people, and get certified on our platform, which is serviceyr.org. Second, if you're working with young people, tell them about the chance to serve and encourage them to go on the site and find positions. There are positions for people who haven't gone to college. So if you have a young person who maybe needs that special year, they can't afford to pay for that gap year that all the rich or middle class kids are paying for. They get paid to do this, so think about that. And then finally, if this is a presidential election year, and it's a very important year in terms of setting the future of this country. And if you're in a town hall and you see a candidate, ask a question: do you support national service funding? If you are talking to any candidate, Congress, we need that. They not only need to hear from people in Washington, and Wendy's done an amazing job schlepping around Capitol Hill. Our partner, Voices for National Service, which is another organization that we work super closely with, mobilizes an amazing force. But they need amplification, and so anything you can do out and wherever you are would be super helpful. So I'm going to close with that, but just to say how honored I am to have the chance to speak with this group today.
Thanks, Shirley. Michael Brown.
So it's such an honor to be here today, and on behalf of everyone at City Year, I just want to say congratulations to Teach for America on 25 extraordinary years of leadership and leadership development and changing the way America educates its highest need students. And it's simply tremendous. It's a triumph. and to be here today helping to celebrate this is an honor. My Wendy Kopp story is that she visited us. We had started City Year about a year before TFA was getting off the ground, and she came by to visit us, and Ellen will probably remember, and she was literally carrying her Princeton thesis in her bag, the kind that you kind of put in a binder and pull back, and she was carrying it around and talking about this thesis about connecting the need in schools to young people who could be serving in them as teachers. And we had decided to start City Year with a 50-person youth corps in Boston. It's been about 2 years developing it. She said she wanted to start with 500 nationwide. I didn't have any money yet for it. And I, of course, what people do is you talk about your own experience. So I said, well, maybe you should do 50 in one city. She listened for a minute and said, no, I want to do 500 all over the country. Well, she ended up doing 500 all over the country. And ever since then, I've realized that I should just listen to Wendy and Teach for America and stop trying to give any kind of advice. It's been, remarkable to be in the tailwinds of what TFA has done and this incredible movement that you're all part of. City Year is also really proud that it is today contributes more TFA members than any college or university in the country. We're incredibly proud of that. We want to send you as many possible young people that want to teach in the highest need schools across the country. And I want to say to you, Wendy, thank you for leading AmeriCorps and the corporation back to extraordinary heights. Your leadership has actually institutionalized the future of national service in this country.
Thank you.
And it's been incredibly needed and so appreciated. So City Year, and Alan and I are, on two ends of this. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are today. I did start back when I was 20 years old. I got turned onto this idea by Leon Panetta because he had legislation about national service. Alan and I care deeply about this idea that one day the most commonly asked question of a young person should be, where will you do your service year? As everyone on this panel is, and I think hopefully many of you. 10 years ago, we stepped back from doing general service all over the country, and we decided to focus in high-need schools. 75% of our corps were being drawn into schools by local executive directors, but it wasn't yet any kind of standardized program. We studied that, and we found that schools really like the near-peer relationship between young adults in City Year that could provide full-time tutors, mentors, and role models, helping amazing teachers in schools succeed. And basically the idea is, and I hope this has resonance for all of you that are in schools or recently in schools in TFA, there really isn't enough human capital in the building in high poverty schools. You have intergenerational concentrated poverty. Kids come in with so many extra needs. They need social and emotional supports. They need academic supports. They need one-on-one and small group behavioral initiatives, attendance initiatives, after-school programs, and as amazing teachers as TFA are, I'm sure, I hope you know that you need even more support in the building. So that's what we try to bring in, and we try to saturate the highest need elementary and middle and high schools with teams of uniformed young people who are there from 7:30 in the morning, greeting every student, clapping and cheering for teachers and students as they enter the building, high fives, welcome to school, calling the home of every student that's absent by 9 a.m., where are you, we need you here today, and then providing academic, behavioral, academic interventions, small group instructions in math and English, and social and emotional supports throughout the day, and then running an after-school program that's academic and enrichment-based. We're starting to get some exciting results. We're seeing that we're able to get the data. We're decreasing chronic absenteeism by 36%. We're decreasing the number of students that are off track on English by 46%, and decreasing the number of students that are off track in math by 57%. So we can get the data, we can concentrate on focus lists, we're beginning to have some real movement in these numbers. And Policy Studies Associates just came out with a study that said that if you have City in your schools, you're 2 to 3 times more likely to have increased test scores in proficiency in math and English in elementary and secondary schools. So it's beginning to work in terms of this partnership between teachers, schools, and national service. And we set a long-term impact goal, and it's one of the main architects is here, Jim Balfance is president of City Year and a City Year alum. And what we've decided to do is try to scale it. And what we're trying to do is ensure that 80% of the students are on track in every school, in every high school that we're in. We want to serve with the same students for 7 years, elementary, middle, and high school grades 3 through 9. because the early warning indicator research that came out of Chicago and Johns Hopkins University, it says you can predict who's likely to drop out by high absences, poor behaviors, and course failure. So that's what we're trying to do to concentrate on. So frankly, you all as the teachers can concentrate on working with the students as a whole, the whole classroom. If there's a kid with the head down on their desk, a teacher can't stop and deal only with that student. If somebody's acting up, National Service can come in and partner with teachers to be able to provide the climate and the culture, the academic supports, the social and emotional supports. Ultimately, at scale, our long-term impact goal is to go from 300 schools to around 1,000, to go from 3,000 core members to around 12,000, and to go from serving 200,000 students today to just under 1 million, about 900,000 students. And if we were doing that, we'd be serving in the schools in the communities that are producing 2/3 of the urban dropouts. And we want to do that every step of the way with TFA and TFA alums that are building this incredible network of educational innovation around the country and show that national service can be the fuel for education reform. So again, it's incredibly exciting to be here and look forward to your questions and conversation.
Thanks, Michael.
Michael, number 2. Good morning, Teach for America. It's great to be here today. I was thinking one of my favorite quotes is a Greek proverb that says, "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit." Society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they will never sit. I'm not saying we have any old men on this panel, but there's folks here that have planted incredible trees that are producing shade that are going to protect our children for generations to come. And when I think about that quote, I think about the civil rights movement, and I think about folks like John Lewis, who so many of us are sitting under the shade of the trees that generation planted, and so many of us aren't thinking about the trees that the next generation is gonna need. And Congressman Lewis always says, why aren't you getting in the way and getting in trouble? When my generation was getting in the way and getting in trouble, that meant hoses, that meant dogs, that meant being beaten, that meant losing your life. And we look at a generation that seems to be not as civically active as they used to be. Where are you? And I look at this incredible audience of people that are getting in the way, that are getting in trouble, that could have gone to more affluent career prospects, that maybe aren't dealing with the challenges that come along with poverty and being in urban centers. And I am just so personally grateful, not only for these incredible folks that have dedicated their lives to service, but to all of you and what the data shows, not only what those of you that are in Teach for America are doing now, but what you will do in the future to really shape the future of our country and for our kids. So I want to say a humble thank you to all of you before I say anything else. And I see my colleague, Gaurav Bansal, who's Deputy Assistant to the President and Deputy Director of the Office of Cabinet Affairs, Teach for America alum who's here as well, who's getting in the way and getting in trouble all the time as well. So thanks for coming to this panel so early, Gaurav. In terms of My Brother's Keeper, the cornerstone of the President's administration is about expanding opportunity. Everything that we do in domestic policy is about creating equal ladders of opportunity so that we can have the next generation of Barack Obamas and Michelle Obamas. We had a summit recently where we brought in high school students that are beating the odds, and you hear the First Lady and the President talk about it, and they are still tickled pink with the idea that a kid like Barack Obama growing up in Hawaii who didn't really know his dad, or a kid like Michelle Obama growing up in the south side of Chicago can be President and First Lady of the United States. And everything that they do is about making sure that story can be repeated many, many times over. So while everything we're doing is about expanding opportunity, a few years ago, a couple things happened. One, Trayvon Martin happened, and the nation was shaken. Sadly, we've seen Michael Brown, and we've seen so many other stories that are so sad, but at the time, we saw that. And America was angry, and the president went and surprised the press briefing corps one day to try to explain the anger and the angst that Americans were feeling, especially parents of brown and black boys. And he said, Trayvon Martin could have been my son. Trayvon Martin could have been me. And he talked about the fact that we're seeing startling statistics facing boys and young men of color. I'm concerned about the images that they're getting. I'm concerned that they might not feel that their country loves them, protects them, and sees a path for them. So there has to be something that we can do about it. And that was in the summer of 2013. He said, I don't have a big plan, I don't have an idea, but we're going to do something. And so I was at the Social Innovation Fund at that time and got a call from the then cabinet secretary who said, you know, when he said we don't really have a plan, he was serious. Come over and help us think about it. And we started a ragtag group of us talking to leaders on the outside that eventually led to the creation of My Brother's Keeper, which is simply about addressing these persistent opportunity gaps that boys and young men of color face and making sure that all young people can achieve their dreams. And we're doing that through 3 different work streams. There's a policy agenda, there's a place-based state and local engagement agenda, and there is a private sector agenda. On the policy side of things, we have a federal task force. Every member of the cabinet that has anything to do with domestic policy reports directly to the president, giving him recommendations on what we can do to address these opportunity gaps, like reading at grade level by 3rd grade, where sadly 80% of our Black and Latino boys are still not reading at grade level by 3rd grade, or all the way up for reducing violence and second chances, where we've got Black boys being 6% of the nation's population, but almost half of the nation's murder victims. So they gave him specific recommendations in a public report in May of 2014, and they have been working with a gusto to complete those recommendations before this administration ends. Things like Second Chance Pell. So for the first time in 30 years, there's now a pilot program from the Department of Education where universities and correctional institutions can work together to give Pell Grants to folks that want to get their education while they're incarcerated. That's the policy agenda, and we've really touched on about 80% of our recommendations. On the place-based side, there are now almost 250 My Brother's Keeper communities all across the country, 49 states, 19 tribal nations, DC and Puerto Rico, that are developing their own cradle-to-college and career strategies and putting staff in place, task forces in place, bold goals to make sure that this work will last long beyond the president's administration. And then lastly, private sector engagement. We've now seen more than $500 million in aligned investments. We've seen $1 billion in financing being committed to CDFIs. And really the private sector is stepping up in a big way because they realize that this isn't just about a moral obligation, but it's also about an economic imperative. We cannot be a successful, globally competitive society if we continue to write off so many of our young men who are being sentenced from schools to prison or who are not actively involved in the labor education system. So that's what we're doing, and I'm grateful because I know so many of you are a part of this work every day. And you know, we're in many ways, we started a spark here, we're building on a movement, but in many ways we're just getting started.
Great, thank you, Michael. Alan.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am so excited to be here. As my dear friends and colleagues on this panel, I'm so honored to share the stage with all of you. They're all heroes as well as dear friends to me. But I've been at the 5th, the 10th, the 15th, the 20th, and now the 25th anniversary of Teach for America, and I will keep coming back as long as you invite me. I come here because it feeds my soul. The energy here, the idealism here, the commitment here that I feel, and it builds and builds every anniversary, is just extraordinary. I mean, it's extraordinary. And Michael's absolutely right. Thank God Wendy didn't listen to us. And she went for 500 that first year. And it was an act of will. And it was really tricky. And it was really hard. And I remember, thank God, Shirley, you and Eli were at the Corporation for National Service. I had the privilege of serving on the board of Teach for America in the early years. And we had almost weekly board calls about, oh my God, where are we going to get the money? We have all these incredible young people who've signed up. We are making a difference in schools, the most needy schools all across the country, and yet the money isn't coming. And when the Corporation for National and Community Service, under Eli and Shirley's leadership, committed $2 million to Teach for America back in 1993-94, that saved the organization. People don't know that. There was a real chance that Teach for America wasn't going to go on. And 25 years later, it's still an act of will. And there are people who don't get it. And whenever you're fighting for social justice, there's going to be critics. But I can tell you, I love this organization. And we all need to fight for it and stand up for it. And Elisa's doing an incredible job, and the fact that you're all here, 15,000 of you, says more than you can ever say. Coming on your own time, on your own dime, on the weekend, and that 80% of you are still involved in the educational equity movement and the national service movement, I mean, you are the living proof of what national service is all about. Our whole theory was if people do a year of service or 2 years as you do, it turns on your justice nerve. I believe everybody has a justice nerve. And what that means is you have to experience injustice to get it turned on. But once it's turned on, it never goes off. Why are 80% of your alumni still involved in the educational equity movement? Why are 15,000 of you here? And you know, you're all up here, and I appreciate what Michael said about planting trees. Michael, Shirley, and I were in law school together, and Michael and I were in college together. We've been at this for 30 years, folks. So we need to hear from you. How do we take this movement to scale? That's my question to you. How do we make a year of service, at least a year, a rite of passage for every single young person? How does every single kid that you all are teaching grow up and want to be a Teach for America Corps member or a City Year Corps member or join AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps or do a service year? Because that's what it's going to take to change this country. And we need all of you to get engaged in that movement too. 42,000 TFA alumni, 20,000 City Year alumni, 1 million AmeriCorps members. That's great. But what's really going to change this country is when we have 1 million people a year joining TFA and Youth Build and Public Allies and City Year and the new programs, Food Corps, Green City Force, Mission Continues, Global Health Corps. And so that's what I want to throw out to you. How do we get there? Sometimes I feel like I live in an alternative universe. I really do. I come here, I'm so inspired, I'm so idealistic. I have never felt, I've been at this for a long time in my lifetime, that we need this commitment to national service more than ever. We need it to heal the divisions in our country, which are deep and real and getting more dangerous. And the work that Michael's doing on My Brother's Keeper is so important to that. We need to unleash the idealism and energy of each generation to tackle the problems in education and poverty and the environment and healthcare. We need to most of all build a sense that after all, at the end of the day, we are all in this together. And yet we have a presidential campaign. There isn't a single candidate. We started with, I don't know, like 30 people running for president. Not one of them has put out a comprehensive strategy to get national service to scale. Nobody's talking about it. There are some commitments which are great, but it's not in the dialogue, it's not in the debate. So Shirley's absolutely right. It's going to be up to us. I started Be the Change inspired by Gandhi, who said, you must be the change you seek in the world, and we work on national service as a strategy, we work on fighting poverty, work on empowering veterans. So I guess my challenge to all of us is, what can we do to really take this movement to scale? How do we all do even more, double down? Shirley's right. Go to those candidate forums, talk to your members of Congress. I love that Teach for America started Lee Now, elect your fellow Corps members. Get behind Emily Cherniak, who started New Politics to get people elected to Congress. Seth Moulton is in Congress because of Emily Cherniak, and he's a great new leader, having served in the military for the National Service Movement. So we got to engage in that. And I know it's possible because I think of what we do in other places. Facebook didn't exist 12 years ago. It's 1.5 billion users. More importantly, as my 13-year-old daughter reminds me every day, Snapchat has 200 million users, and it's only been around for 4 years. We spent 10 years and $2.7 billion to crack the human genome, and now it can be done in a day for $1,000. And companies say we'll be able to do it with $100. So we can do big things. We can literally change the world. So I hope that one of the things, and as you're talking in the hallways to your fellow alumni and Corps members and movement leaders, you say, what can we do to take this to scale? How do we work together? How do we get the country to understand what we all know deep in our hearts? It's amazing to me, we're like, what, 2 miles from Capitol Hill? I wish we could somehow summon all of Congress just to be here and listen for the day. Because I think if they did that, the tone would change, and more importantly, they would understand why we as a country have to double down and commit to this. So it's just an honor for me to be here. I'm so inspired. Thank you for feeding my soul.
Thank you. Alan, I'm like sitting up thinking, I want to say, can I get an amen? I mean, I'm just thrilled. I'm motivated now. And you see why I am so proud to call these heroes my brothers and sister in service. They're amazing, every one of them. and they care deeply about America's future. And that's what they share a deep, deep bond in. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask them a couple of great, challenging questions, some big ideas, and then I'm going to have some time for you. So you be thinking about things you want to ask this dynamic team as well. We'll set aside some time. So starting with Michael Brown, this is an audience filled with education, passion leaders. They all in some form have either been a teacher or engaged in some kind of education passion. What would you do with just this room if you could wave a wand tomorrow and say, here's what I want you to take your passion and put it into?
Terrific. We're all deputizing everybody right here, right now. This is great. So, well, obviously, you're all in TFA. You're all here at 9 in the morning. You've traveled from all over the country. You are so committed. So I'm sure you're already doing that. And TFA is leading the country in educational reform. So I'll offer a few humble ideas to add to all the things that everyone is already doing. There's the service movement and there's education reform movement. And where they've come together with Wendy's leadership is at the Corporation for National and Community Service. I would ask folks to really, for those of you that are really leaning into the education reform movement, it's almost like software writers out there, whether it's City Year or Playworks or Citizen Schools, they're utilizing service to create opportunities that can help really expand all the things we want to see happen with education reform, expanding the day, one-on-one and small group instruction, social and emotional support. So I would encourage folks to really lean into the service movement and connect the dots to the educational movement. So if I could wave a wand and say, can you go out there across the country and find those organizations in your local communities and connect them in and scale them together and work with teachers about how to use them and administrators to put all the dots together between service, which is a human capital font that can and should be much larger. I guess the second one I would say, and just to reiterate what we're all going to say, is we need to lean into the policy to promote and protect and grow the Corporation for National and Community Service. The budget for AmeriCorps, it's $1 billion. It should be tenfold of that. When we can actually get in front of members of Congress, have them visit programs. Every TFA member is an AmeriCorps member. We need the federal investment in national service to grow dramatically. And we've seen changes happen when people come and visit and talk about it. And that can also happen at the state and local level. We need state and local commitment to service and educational reform programs. And I guess if there's a third thing is, and you're already doing this, but anything that we can do to help, and I would wish we could all do more together, is to promote the concept that teachers are absolutely essential to this nation. And we have to do everything we can to invest in America's teaching and to be able to say that this profession should be put first everywhere. To the point where if you want to recruit as a major company on a college campus or a business school, first thing you should say is we want you to join a teacher corps or some kind of service corps for a year before you even come on board. We want to put teaching and education first in every single platform. So those would be 3 things to add to everything else you're already doing.
Awesome. Very good. Excellent. So in any of you, as I ask some of these questions, I mean, I've got more than we have time for, but if you just feel like you've just got to add something to any of the speakers, please, I encourage y'all to do that. So, Alan, I think everybody today has talked about the young people and motivating young people to serve. And I love this big vision, 1 million people every year, every young person serve somehow their community or their world or our world. But what are some ideas about expanding that to lifelong service? We know from a longitudinal study that if you serve in AmeriCorps, that you have a higher propensity to serve and volunteer for the rest of your life than the study group that did not consider AmeriCorps but did not serve. So what do we do to take this, to scale it up in age?
I think that's a great question, Wendy, and if our mutual dear friend Phyllis Siegel were here, or Mark Friedman, they'd be saying, you know what, there's a whole generation, the Encore generation, and we have to do more to support Encore service. You know, the baby boomers don't want to retire the way their parents, grandparents did. They don't want to just go play golf or go to the beach or just relax, and some of them have to keep working because of the economy. But there is this extraordinary generation that is living longer, that's healthy, that has experience, that wants to give back and participate. And so I am a big fan of the Encore movement, the Encore service movement. You have Senior Corps and you've been supporting that. And I think that And the studies do show this. So we have to, I think, I would like to see two things happen. Now, we are, with the Service Year Alliance and work that Michael and I have done with City Year and others, we do think that year of service, sometime between 18 and 28, as people are emerging into adulthood, is pivotal, because justice nerves do get turned on, and then you do continue to serve for the rest of your life. But I think there's two challenges we have. One is really promoting that encore service year also, and that encore service where people can continue to serve, because we need that experience, that idealism. I also, I have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old. And we are in a really good public school system in Brookline, Massachusetts. Michael's kids are there too. And this is a good public school. There is no service learning in our schools. My daughter, who's 13, has 3 friends who have been suicidal because of bullying, because of the technology, because of just feeling disconnected. Now, I am convinced, because of the work I've done, that if we could have community service learning programs in all of our schools, starting in middle school through high school, not only does it create that pipeline, I mean, it's interesting. Kids start talking about, parents start talking about, sending their kids to college when they're born, but kids actively, my daughter's now going into 9th grade, they're already talking about what college prep classes are you going to take? So we also need to build that service learning pipeline. So I think it's key to just social and emotional cohesion, and to give some kids who aren't the stars or the athletes or whatever a chance to shine. Dr. King was right, everyone can be great because everybody can serve, but also to build that pipeline. So I think we have to build more, we have to do more as a movement to build that pipeline in the younger grades through the schools. And I would challenge everybody in TFA to think about, well, how do you get your kids that you're teaching doing service and push service learning? And Jimmy Balfance and I were talking about this last night in the schools. And I think the Encore service that Phyllis is leading on and Mark Friedman is also the other end. We have to make this a lifetime commitment in our society.
And we know that from our research that if you volunteer, especially at an older age, you actually live longer. So if that's not a motivation, I don't know what isn't. Our oldest foster grandparent started 26 years ago at the age of 80. She's 106. She's here in D.C., Grandma Virginia. Unbelievable. Her daughter told me she is absolutely convinced the reason she's living today is because she walks to school every day, and volunteers in the school. And she oftentimes gets offered rides, but she says no, she needs the exercise. But so we know that actually as we grow older, we know there's a physical impact that's positive. Michael Smith, I'm so proud that I served an administration that actually started My Brother's Keeper, which will last forever, because we are all going to make sure it does, to make sure that we as Americans are taking care of our young boys and girls, our young men and women, and giving them the opportunity to shine in that ladder of opportunity that the President talks so much about. What can we do to help you? We're ready. Sign us up.
Get out your pens.
Yeah.
Or your iPhones. Thanks for that question, Wendy. One, in many ways, you already are. My Brother's Keeper is focused on this idea of the life course framework, which you all are familiar with, the idea that from the ages of 0 to 21, that pathway to adulthood, there are these 6 key milestones where if we're not careful, we can lose kids, but if we do invest, we can make sure that they have a brighter future. So everything from entering kindergarten ready to learn, making sure kids are reading at grade level by 3rd grade, making sure all kids are graduating for high school, making sure all kids are graduating from some sort of post-secondary education, making sure that all kids out of school are actually working, and then making sure all kids remain safe from violent crime and also have the opportunity for second chances. And so there are ways that you all are already plugging in and so many different spaces there, whether it's reading interventions or it's working on FAFSA and getting kids into college, helping them to stay in college. So the retention piece is very important. But then even other things, as you think about yourselves and as you get older or your parents, are we taking a chance on the so-called opportunity youth? Almost 7 million young people that are out of school and out of work, the vast majority of whom happen to be boys and young men of color. If you own a business, are you taking a chance on someone that may have a record and giving them a shot at coming in. And the federal government, President Obama announced, I guess that was in November, that we're banning the box in all federal jobs, so that if you made a mistake, you don't have to carry that with you forever and check that box that likely gets your application thrown in the trash. So you at least get a foot in the door. So just thinking about those ways that you're working in those key milestones with our young people to make sure that they have an opportunity for a brighter future. The other thing I would say is this idea of mentoring. It sounds so simple, but it's so important. When we launched this organization called the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, which is a nonprofit that will keep up the work of My Brother's Keeper after we're gone, the president met with a group of young men beforehand, as we often do with My Brother's Keeper events, and he was so moved by some of the stories that at the end of the speech, those of us who knew what the text was, we realized that he was veering off, and he changed the bottom of his speech just off the cuff. And one thing he did was he looked directly to the young people in the audience, and he says, I want you to know there's nothing, not a single thing, that's more important to the future of this country than whether or not you and young men like you and young people like you can achieve their dreams. For young people, in so many of our communities that don't even know if they're going to reach 21, nevertheless have a dream to use their unique talents and gifts to give back to this country. So this idea of mentoring is not only about a caring adult, it's about finding these opportunities to make sure our young people know that they matter and that they see clear pathways to the future. So and we were meeting with the folks from Big Brothers Big Sisters. There is a waiting list, I think, across the country of about 13,000 boys of color that are sitting on a waiting list. That's just unacceptable. And that's such a number that is achievable. We've got to stop giving lip service to this and doing something about it. I think of the organizations that I meet with who say, I want to do something. Well, do that. You go into any given church in this country on a Sunday morning, we could fill that. And it doesn't matter if you're a black man, anybody can be a mentor to a young person and provide opportunities. Whether you're a white woman, an Asian woman, we need everyone really helping to make sure our boys have a pathway. And the last thing I would say is we've got these 240-ish My Brother's Keeper communities around the country. They are being serious to having a collective impact approach. They are being serious about evidence and making sure they're tracking data and metrics. They are being serious about hiring. So if you are in one of these communities, and you can find out by going to our website, whitehouse.gov/MBK, knock on their doors, usually housed in the mayor's office or a community partner, and say, how can I help? Do you need help developing your data dashboard? Do you need help with this plan to double down on the summer jobs? Do you need help launching this mentoring program? Because there's a lot of hardworking, earnest people who would make their year if some smart, talented folks like you knocked on a door and offered your support. And that's the ground game is going to be what really makes a difference in this work.
All right, we have homework. Be a mentor. I tell you what, it's my favorite hour of the week is my time with Karen as a mentor and a tutor with an AmeriCorps Reading Partners program, and you will get more out of it than they do, and it's just really great. So we're signing everybody up, which is great. Thank you, Michael. Shirley, we've been at National Service 50 years for VISTA, 50 years for foster grandparents, 21 years for AmeriCorps, about 40 years senior companions. Service is really working, and we have great examples, but not every community is either knows how to find and unlock the secret of service or feels like they can afford to or knows how to get started. I'm going to give you one example, and I want you to tell us what we can do about the fact that we need to take these models. Anybody here from Eastern Rural Kentucky? Anybody here from Kentucky? No one. One of the toughest areas of the community is Eastern Rural Kentucky. And I've traveled there many, many times in the last 4 years, and it is a really, really tough part of our country that needs our help. There was a school in Leslie County, Kentucky, Leslie High School. Listen to these numbers. They were number 224 of 230 schools. That's what they ranked in their test scores in the state of Kentucky, right at the bottom. They were slated to be closed. Persistently low achieving for too many years. They were going to be closed. There was a young lady at Berea College, and what does Berea want? Berea wants the high school to put out a lot of high school graduates so they could become students at Berea College in Eastern Rural Kentucky. And she said, we've got to do something about this. And she had heard about this great program called City Year to lift up these students and work on their attendance, make sure they get to school, make sure they have the right attitudes, make sure they're committed, give them the tutoring they need, both group and individual tutoring in and out of school. And she contacted City Year, and they said, you know, you're not really our model because we're an urban program, but we'll help you in any way we can. And so she just took all the materials, and she created her own City Year, but it's called Partner Corps, AmeriCorps, in the school with 10 AmeriCorps members. And I'm happy to report that they are now 16th in the state of Kentucky. 16. And I met with Principal Rourke, and he told me, and the superintendent of the schools in Leslie County, and he said, these 10 AmeriCorps members changed our world. That's what it took. And they're all from Eastern Rural Kentucky, all those AmeriCorps members. Several of them were Berea College graduates, actually. And they were doing the interventions all over the place. It was just amazing. But that was one person that took a model that was proven. Thank you for sharing, Jim and Michael, your materials. And they made their own City Year in their own little world. Shirley, what can we do? We've got to unlock these secrets. What can we do to expand this?
So one option is we'll just get Michael Brown's phone number and we'll post it all around and everybody can call him. But here's an alternative, which is that we know all around the country that for 50 years, these Vistas, for example, have been creating amazing programs. Mm-hmm. They figure out how to do something, they design. I know one of my favorites is in Florida, actually, this program called Educate Tomorrow, and they realize that kids who are in the foster care system, when they age out, get free college in Florida. And that's true in 17 other states. So this wonderful young social entrepreneur named Virginia Emmons got a Vista, and the Vista documented their program where they are using mentors. They assign them to every foster kid in Miami-Dade County, and they help them apply to college. And she documented it, and she has it all. And she saw me at a conference, and she came up to me and said, I've got this great model, and I want to tell all the other states that I've got it, and here it is in a box, and what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know, because there's no system to transfer knowledge. Now, I know in City Year, you figure it out, you experiment, you package it, you've got amazing backup, so that program in Boston is teaching the program in San Antonio and vice versa. And I know Teach for America has about the most sophisticated systems, in the world to use data and everything else to make the program lift up. And we know that companies all around the world have franchise models and, there's all this DIY movement. Why? But we don't have a system in the service space to lift up these models that are working and to, put them into a system where other people can, replicate them, adapt them, and learn from each other and be in a learning community. So that's one of the things that the Service Year Alliance is putting together, are a set of boxes. So if City Year didn't want everyone calling Michael Brown and Jim Balfonts, but instead said, here's my toolkit. We're never going to come to rural Kentucky. We're never going to come to suburban, DC. But we know there are kids there who need help. We can box it up and make it available. We're also creating learning communities, both in person and online, so that everybody who's working on a specific challenge can talk to each other and say, what did you do when you had that difficult kid? I don't know enough about, what services are available. I mean, there's just so many things that we could do to make those systems operational. So we're starting in a baby stage. We're looking for partners to develop boxes, and we're creating learning communities online. Those are the first two things we're doing. But I think we can do a lot more. And I'll tell you, the first thing I'm going to do is try to create a competition so that we get those best Vista models and, put them in boxes and spread them around. That seems to me to be a real early win for us.
That'd be a huge win, and we've got to do a better job of sharing that. So I'm going to break. I've had some more questions, but I'm going to break here a minute and turn to you. What inspirational thoughts do you have? We've got a microphone right in the middle, or speak very loud. Oh, we have two microphones, probably best of you. So what thoughts do you have, or questions for our panel, or challenges for us? We are very fortunate to be in a position to take your ideas and do something with them, but we need your help with it. But what thoughts, challenges, questions, any of you, might you have for any of us? Yes.
Hi guys, thank you so much for being here. now I have the honor of being the city year recruiter at Teach for America.
Hello,
Awesome.
my name is Richard Reese. I am the recruitment manager, recruitment coordinator for the Mid-Atlantic region for City Year. I served 2 years in San Antonio, and now I'm on staff with City Year. So.
Awesome.
So Richard and I spend all day long trying to convince young people, college seniors, young professionals to join national service, Teach for America, City Year, and it's really challenging. There are many, many reasons, whether they're political, improving economy, other job offers, that it's hard to get young people in this work. And so we'd love to hear from you guys. If you're sitting across from a young person, like, what would you say? Why would you convince them to take this on? And I think in the same vein too, understanding that less than 2% of teachers in our country are Black men, we have a huge diversity gap. Specifically, how do we convince people who share the backgrounds of our kids to take this on and join our movement?
Great. That's a great question. So we're going to help you with your recruiting. I'll tell you one thing that I'll start off, that I tell college groups when I speak to college students. I asked the group, I said, how many of you would like to increase the chances of you getting a job when you graduate from college by 27%? Just show of hands. And they all, of course, raise their hands because it's tough to get a job right now for anyone. College degree, high school degree, no degree, it's really tough right now. There's a lot of competition for your choice jobs. Our research shows that if you volunteer and serve, you increase the likelihood of getting a job by 27%. If you live in a rural community, that jumps to 55%. So that's just one personal direct stat that, that really drives it. But we want to invite people to change the world with us and then use that to your advantage.
I just want to add to what Wendy just said. There is an initiative we've been proud to co-sponsor with the corporation called Employers of National Service. And those are employers like Disney and Comcast and also United Ways and nonprofit and City of Philadelphia, that they have stepped up and said that they're going to give an advantage to anybody who has done a year of service in their employment process. So that's another way that that's helping.
Big way.
The other thing we're trying to do with the Alliance is to create an ecosystem in which it's not like the first time you've ever heard about service is from the recruiter who's trying to recruit you, that it's something, this is something you can do in your classrooms, is to do that kind of exposure early. But if we can create an ecosystem where service is lifted up and valued, Stan McChrystal always says that he wants people to be applauding people who did civilian service the way we applaud veterans of military service at ballparks and theater. So let's figure out how we can lift this up together so that when you come and are trying to pitch some young person, they're not looking you don't have to start with what is service? Because I think that could probably help.
I think it really does. And these employers tell us, there's 300 now that have signed up for Employers for National Service who are looking for people. And I talked to these CEOs and C-level employers, and they said, Wendy, we're not doing this to be listed on some website. We're doing it because we really think that young men and women who care about their community, put the mission above self, service above self, organization above self, is the type of individual that we want on our teams. So you should use that in your recruiting to say America's employers have to delineate character in their search. I'll give you a great example. Delta Airlines just joined last week, Employers of National Service, and it was done by a lot of people played a part in this, including AmeriCorps alums. When I met with the foundation director for Delta Airlines, he said, but Wendy, we have more applications than we could ever hire. We don't need really any help in more applications for our jobs. They're one of the largest employers in America, and they have hundreds of thousands of applications. I said, you're right, but you know what you need? He said, what? You need to figure out which in the group, in that bunch, have the greatest character. And you need to find those AmeriCorps and those Peace Corps alums, because those are the ones that you want to choose to call your list down. And he said, you're absolutely right. And that's why, one of the reasons I think that they joined Employers of National Service.
I just want to add that. So, clearly what we're trying to do is change the trajectory, the life trajectory of young people, that says that there's not just K through 12 and college or career, or college and career, or grad school and college and career. There's this embedded year of service. That's a gigantic cultural change that Alan and Shirley are taking on with the service year. That's incredibly important to change. But it also means we need institutional changes at every step of that pipeline. So as Shirley just said, it isn't the first time you've heard of it when it comes along. And that means colleges need to be, and grad schools need to be challenged to say, are you encouraging, paying for, promoting a year of service when the application comes back or the thing says you're in, but we'd like you to do a year of service first, during, after, before you come to grad school, after? These employers, before you can take anyone, you got to say you got to offer a year of service. We have parents being educated. Nobody wants to fall behind in this system. At City Year, it was Jim that came up with this, this great phrase. It says, what we say to young people is, it's not a gap year, it's a leap year. It moves you ahead. But we can't do this alone without fundamental institutional change. So Tufts has a great program called 1+4 they're piloting. You get accepted at Tufts, you can actually be given an opportunity to do a service year and then come to Tufts because they want people on their campus that have had these experiences. If we writ large that and basically say college is basically almost a 6-year opportunity for service before, during, the 4 years after, now we're embedding service into what it means to grow up in a modern democracy. And we have to then tie this GI Bill to service. And the GI Bill is one of the proudest, most important things, the greatest social program that's probably ever existed in this country. More people have had their life prospects and their families' life prospects changed by the GI Bill in one generation than any other program. We've got to bring service domestically up, maybe not exactly to people who risk their lives for our country, but transformational levels. So that if you do 2 years of service, you should be able to get 4 years of a public university. And instead of getting $30,000 in debt, which is the average debt, and many have much more, including, I'm sure, folks in this room, we have to tie all that together and say it's unacceptable to basically laden an entire generation with debt that can never go away. It's the only debt in America that you can't declare bankruptcy against. We're mortgaging every young person in this country, and we got to connect service to that. And frankly, that's a political movement that has to happen. If you're willing to do 2 years of service to this country, whether it's in the military or domestic, you should not have to worry about paying for higher education.
Yeah. Amen on that. So anyone in the audience, what would you, oh, here we go. I'll save my question for later. All right.
Hi, good morning. I am a 2014 Corps member in Buffalo, New York, and I am a 5th and 6th grade teacher. I have a question regarding service, not just for people who are my age, I'm 24, or in college, but service for my students. I'm constantly preaching to my kids that leadership and scholarship is what school is all about. And I think sometimes it's difficult for my students to bridge school and community. I'm interested in headlining or even starting an organization where it goes for children who are maybe 10 to 18 years old when they are doing service in their communities. And I want to know, what advice would you give me surrounding that issue?
Love that. I love that. Thank you very much. 5th and 6th grade. The president shares your vision. And in fact, he put in our budget funding, which unfortunately we didn't get this year, but we're going to work on it, for 13,000 young people to serve, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, young people, to serve so they can get exactly what you have a vision for. They can get a sense of community and show that they've got assets. And the one thing that I've learned from talking to young people is they want to be heard and listened to, not talked at, but listened to by adults, by older peers. And they have a contribution to make. We have to provide the pathway for them to do so. So please start that organization. I know some, Alan?
I would just add, Michael and I always say people come see us. First of all, I love that you want to do this. As I said, I was talking with my dear friend Jim Balfance last night. I have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old. There is no service learning, community service programs for them in our really good public school district. And so I've become more passionate just as a parent. I see the need for it. So please do it. I was talking with Jim last night and another friend of ours, Itai Denor, who's working at this great foundation, saying there aren't enough people actually doing this. So quick things. We always say find a partner and build a team. I mean, Michael and I were lucky. We were signed to be roommates freshman year. And then we stayed together as roommates the next 12 years until he got married, then he kicked me out. But we were lucky. I mean, there was like sort of a divine hand that brought us together. But there are so many great people here. It's great you just put your idea out. I want to do this. Maybe there's somebody in this room that says, you know what, I want to do it too. I mean, this is an incredible community that you could find people. Get people who share your passion. I'd start with this network. And then just start telling people you're interested. And then somebody may say, you know what, I've always been interested in that too. Maybe you'll meet a funder here. There's lots of great people who've supported Teach for America that are at this conference. Put your idea, pull an idea team together. My wife, Vanessa Kirsch, is brilliant at this. Just start inviting people. I have this idea, what do you think? And then write it down so you can share it with people. And then think about, well, how would this actually work? And then the other thing we learned is, it's okay to start with a pilot. You start something with your kids right now in the school you're in, something small. And then get them to be the champions for you, because young people do want to connect to adults. They're also really powerful. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids are amazing, especially when they want to engage. So that's just some of the stuff. But please do this. We need you to do it.
It's great. I want to say something about this because I'm so excited that you brought this up. And there are two different routes people go down when they think about this. One is they just think, oh, well, we'll just send them out to serve. And if there are any programs that want to take young kids, they're going to use them in a very rote way. The kids aren't going to really understand why they're there. They're going to just do something that they're flipping burgers for homeless people, but does that have any meaning if they have no contact? So there's that version of community service, and it's not always a bad thing, but it's not powerful. And what's powerful is if the young people themselves are able to spend time looking at their community and identifying something that's a problem. And then with an adult coach, which could be you, or it could be somebody you recruit, it could be a service year person that you raise money for, they can help the kids understand how the world works. So if they think there's a problem because there's a really dangerous intersection, is the best solution to get volunteers to organize a walk across the street or walking school bus? Is the best solution to go to the school board and say, our bus routes are not safe? Is the best solution to go to the neighborhood and say, we need to change how the sidewalks are taken care of here? Like they don't know what the thing to do is. So give them that power and then a knowledge, and then empower them to do what needs to be done, whether it's writing to the mayor or organizing volunteers. And if I weren't doing the service year stuff, what I would like to be doing is creating a thing that's like the science fair, only for social problem solving. So you've got, every school does the science fair, and kids learn to create a hypothesis and test things and display it and show off a bit, and you get prizes, and if you're really great, you get a scholarship to MIT. But what if we did that on the other side, and in social studies classes or in English or whatever, and really help people to learn that side of creating a hypothesis and fixing it? I think that could change the country.
Let's do it.
Let's go, John. I love that. Poster with
That's great. And, I do a lot of media interviews right before the holidays every year, and I sort of lecture parents, and this could apply to teachers too. I say, parents, take your kids out to volunteer during the holidays and let it be the start of the new year after that, especially Martin Luther King Day of Service. But you let them decide what they're going to do. You don't say, we're going to. You say, what do you care about? Just what Shirley said. And where are we going? You're in charge. 9-year-old, 5-year-old, 14-year-old, you're in charge. What are we going to do? And give it to them.
Hey, Wendy, if I could, you said those 13,000 that didn't get funded in high school. Shirley's, I love this idea. Someone once said famously that there are many things in life that are more important than money, and they all cost money. And my point on this is, we've been talking about here, we have to increase the investment in national service so these essentially programs could be written and scaled, and all this innovation can happen. And we have here in the front row Ann Mora Conley. She wears two hats. She's Executive Vice President of City Year. She's also President of Voices for National Service. And I want to encourage all the leaders in the room to go to voicesfornationalservice.org and sign up for the alerts. Voices led a massive effort when it was proposed for 30% cut. There was a proposed 30,000 member cut in AmeriCorps. It would have devastated AmeriCorps. And Voices just went nuts. There were calls to the White House. There were calls to Congress, the Senate, the House. There were letters written by community leaders, by AmeriCorps alums. It mattered. So what we need to do is to create a mighty movement. And you're needed in this. Your voice is needed in this. So I want to make a pitch that one of the requests coming out of here is that everybody sign up for the Voices for National Service alerts and weigh in so that we can grow the federal commitment to national service.
Right. All right. We're signing up. So I want to close with the one day, but I want to do it a little different. Your mission, your philosophy. I want to do it as a call and repeat. So I'll call, you repeat. Let's do it together. One day.
One day.
All children.
All children
In this nation.
in this nation
Will have the opportunity.
will have the opportunity
To attain.
to attain
An excellent education.
an excellent education.
An excellent education.
An excellent education.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you being here. And thank you for this great panel.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Great job. It's great.